And you have to ask yourself, was Elizabeth groomed? Was she isolated? Was she controlled?
The attorney for the mother of 16 children removed from a so-called house of horrors is questioning her mental health. Is Elizabeth Ciders insane? Is she a victim of abuse herself or a perpetrator? Plus, we have an update on Gary Ciders Sr. from his lawyer as questions swirl about images from inside the home circulating online. We're digging into all of it.
16 children, one house, and a lawyer who just asked the court a question no one expected. Is Elizabeth Ciders even capable of standing trial for what happened inside that home? She married at 15 while 7 months pregnant, according to the timeline presented in court documents. 2 months later, she gave birth to her first child. That was 2008. She hasn't stopped since. 18 pregnancies in 18 years, 2 of them conjoined twins who died the day they were born.
Elizabeth Ciders has been married since she was a teenager. She was just a child, 15 years old, and she gave birth to her first child that same year. And really, she hasn't stopped giving birth since 2008. She hasn't had a break. She's given birth to 18 children since 2008. A set of conjoined twins died the same day they were born back in 2022.
On June 30th, Elizabeth Ciders was booked into jail alongside her husband, her father-in-law, and her mother-in-law, all facing 16 counts of child endangerment, second-degree felonies, the kind that carry real prison time. And every one of them has pleaded not guilty.
Now Elizabeth, who was booked into jail on June 30th on 16 counts of child endangering, along with her mother-in-law, Christina Ciders, and her husband, Gary Ciders Jr., and his father, Gary Sr., are in legal trouble. The child endangering charges are second-degree felonies and carry the possibility of major prison time if they are convicted. All of the Ciders family members have pleaded not guilty.
But here's what's pulling this case in a different direction than most people expect. Elizabeth's own attorney has now filed something unusual. A request for a competency evaluation, with a second request folded inside it if she's found competent. He wants the court to also evaluate her for legal insanity at the time of the alleged offenses.
And the attorney representing Elizabeth Ciders has reached that point. He's requesting a competency evaluation for his client. This comes after mental competency exams were requested and granted for Elizabeth's husband, Gary Jr., and her in-laws, Gary Sr. and Christina. But the request for an evaluation comes with an added layer for Elizabeth. This is not just about competency. It's also about possibly laying the groundwork for an insanity defense.
Ask yourself what that means. Her own lawyer is telling a judge in writing, but he has watched his client closely enough to become concerned about her mental state. That's not a small thing to put on paper.
Attorney Tommy Stolle wrote, "Now comes counsel for the defendant, who hereby respectfully moves the court for an order that a formal evaluation be conducted in order to determine whether the defendant is competent at this time to stand trial to the offenses as charged herein. Alternatively, if the defendant is found to be competent, counsel hereby simultaneously requests that the defendant undergo an evaluation to determine if she is not guilty by reason of insanity because she was suffering from a condition which would produce legal insanity at the time of the alleged offenses. Defense counsel makes this motion in good faith to determine defendant's mental condition at the time of the offenses charged and whether defendant is competent to stand trial on the offenses charged."
If you've followed cases like this before, you already know where the questions start. Was Elizabeth an active participant in what prosecutors say happened inside that house? Or was she, in some sense, a product of it? Her attorney, Tommy Stolle, wrote that after numerous occasions of meeting with her, he observed things in her demeanor, conduct, and comprehension that raised concern about whether she can even assist in her own defense. He hasn't said publicly what those things are. He's saving that for the judge, and eventually, for the evaluators. The fact that he's keeping those details private suggests he believes they're serious enough to share only with the court.
Stolle said he's observed things in his meetings with Elizabeth Ciders that concern him. Stolle wrote, "Counsel is prepared to provide a more detailed accounting of his concerns and the specific conduct giving rise to the concerns directly to the court and eventually to the evaluating medical professionals." So Stolle is signaling that he would like to share the information with the judge and not the public. But he also says he's still in the dark about much of the case. Stolle continued, as of the filing of this motion, the defendant has not been indicted, and therefore, counsel does not have all of the facts, evidence, or circumstances of this case or the defendant's subsequent arrest. However, in the interim, counsel has met with the defendant on numerous occasions and for extended periods. During these interactions, counsel has been able to observe the defendant's demeanor, conduct, and comprehension. These interactions lead counsel to believe that the defendant may be suffering from significant mental health issues and that competency may be an issue and a clear impediment to the defendant's ability to assist in her own defense.
Now hold that thought. Because there's a second layer to this that complicates everything.
Are you surprised it took this long for Tommy Stolle to file this motion requesting a competency evaluation?
I am a little bit surprised given her background. Again, some of the factors we had spoken about before, her age when she got married, the fact that she was essentially in this household for 2 decades, the conditions for which the kids were living in. And if we look at the motion, the attorney's own direct observations of her behavior and his concerns about the fact that she might be suffering from mental illness. So I think he did so with good reason, and I am surprised it took this long.
Elizabeth's brother, Jeremy Russell, has been posting publicly since the arrests, and his posts paint 2 very different pictures depending on which day you read them. In one, he insists his sister wouldn't play dumb, that she believed she was doing the right thing, that their mother-in-law had her brainwashed and coached her to stay isolated from family. In another post, from the day of the arrests, he describes what he calls indoctrination, says he met the husband once and immediately distrusted him, and defends his own parents for allowing a 15-year-old to marry in the first place.
We have a lot of nuggets and tidbits coming in, little bits and pieces of information coming in from her brother, who's been posting on Facebook, and then her lawyer. Her lawyer, Tommy Stolle, has said publicly that she does not consider herself a victim. But her brother has been posting on Facebook that things of she was indoctrinated. She went with another family. One of her other brothers said that as children, he and Elizabeth were badly beaten and abused. He said this on a TikTok live, and that he suggested she got pregnant to get out of the house, which that's happened many times in the past with other people. All of these little tidbits we're getting, and even with these little nuggets, there's still so much we don't know. Is it possible that she was, quote unquote, indoctrinated or what have you, but also made this choice?
If you're noticing the contradictions in that story, you're not imagining them. And you're already asking the same question investigators likely are.
All of this comes after Elizabeth Ciders' brother, Jeremy Russell, posted on Facebook about Gary Sr., Christina, and Gary Jr. asking for those competency evaluations. Jeremy Russell wrote, I don't think my sister would play dumb, the rest of the family playing goofy. My sister believed she was in good hands. She thought she was doing the right thing due to them. Them people I have nothing good to say about. Playing goofy, collecting welfare. The mother coached my sister to stay away. They have my sister so brainwashed. The mother got the welfare at the end of the year. Buying cars, posting on Facebook, that's what they just did to my sister. Now, what Jeremy Russell means by the mother got the welfare at the end of the year isn't clear. The county prosecutor said previously he was only aware of Gary Sr. and Christina receiving government benefits. But this isn't the first time that Jeremy has posted about his sister. Back on July 5th, Jeremy posted, got a lot of Facebook investigators, LOL. You're in for a ride. I've been telling you all. My remorse, I don't care. I really don't. That's sad. I tried many times. Ask my ex. She knows I was the one harassing. I love my sister. However, everyone knew about it. I told everyone. Welfare supporters to the maximum. So state knows something. I don't get it. Just leave me alone. And before that, Jeremy Russell posted on the day of the arrests. Jeremy wrote, my sister just wrapped her life up due to indoctrination. It is 100% real. 20 kids and younger than me. The math equals immature, piece of you-know-what man involved. I met this dude a couple of months ago. Shook my hand like a baby would. Super soft hands. Definitely never worked a day in his life. I should have took him out that night. I was thinking about it, but my sister, I was happy to see. Been 15 years. You lost touch with your family, followed another. Look what happened. Jeremy Russell also defended his parents.
So which is it? Victim, or someone who had a duty to know better? I asked forensic psychiatrist Dr. Daniel Bober to help make sense of that, and what he said reframes the entire case.
Dr. Bober, there's been a lot of talk about Elizabeth Ciders potentially being a victim here. She was 15 years old when she was married. She was 7 months pregnant, it appears, at the time that she was married, gave birth 2 months after she was married in 2008. And then we know what happened after that, all these other pregnancies. Is it possible that Elizabeth Ciders is both a victim and somebody who is guilty of child endangering?
He explained that, with the exact same set of facts, prosecution and defense can tell two completely different stories. The prosecution's version, she could have left. She could have asked for help. The defense's version rests on something called battered woman syndrome. Not an official diagnosis, but a recognized pattern involving learned helplessness, trauma bonding, and hypervigilance, where a person becomes so psychologically dependent on their environment that leaving stops feeling possible.
And you have to ask yourself, was Elizabeth groomed? Was she isolated? Was she controlled? Was the activities of the family dictated by her husband and the in-laws? She may have been trapped in an environment in what we call coercive control, where she was subject to manipulation, isolation, and didn't really have anyone to turn to. And when I said how you can take the same set of facts and tell a very different story, the prosecution would say, hey, she could have left anytime she wanted to. She could have asked for help. But we know there is a well known psychological phenomenon called battered woman syndrome, which is not an official diagnosis in the DSM. And obviously, I have not examined her personally. But in this particular syndrome, we can see the effects of learned helplessness, believing that there's no way out, trauma bonding, where you become psychologically dependent on your abuser, and a situation where you're hyper vigilant, you're always looking for threats in the environment, and you don't really feel like you can leave. And this is why a lot of people in the public will say, well, why didn't she just leave? Well, this is the reason. So it will ultimately come down to, I believe, a battle of the experts in this case to show that Elizabeth may not have had the psychological mechanisms or abilities to leave this relationship and may have had less culpability than the prosecution may believe.
Dr. Bober was careful to say he hasn't evaluated Elizabeth personally. But he also said this: it's hard to believe hiding 18 children for close to 2 decades was something she orchestrated alone. More likely, he said, it looked like a system. One designed and maintained by the husband and the in-laws, with her inside it. But, and this is where it gets uncomfortable, being a victim of coercion doesn't automatically erase legal responsibility. Dr. Bober was blunt about that too. You can be mentally ill and still be found competent. You can be mentally ill and still be held criminally responsible.
100%. You can be mentally ill and you can still be competent, and you can be mentally ill and you could still be criminally responsible. So mental illness per se does not mean that you're incompetent or not guilty by reason of insanity. In Ohio, to be found not guilty by reason of insanity, you need to have a mental illness or defect. And because of that mental illness or defect, you are not able to appreciate the wrongfulness of your conduct.
In Ohio, an insanity defense requires proving the defendant didn't understand the wrongfulness of her own conduct at the time. And that's a high bar, one usually associated with cases involving violence, not neglect.
It's like this strange dichotomy. Also made this choice to go with this family.
Right. So if we look at her as a perpetrator, what we see is that no matter what she was going through, she had a fundamental duty to care for her children and not allow 16 children to live in a 12 by foot 12 room in human waste. But if we see her as a victim, then we say, but due to her intense abuse, control, manipulation, that, as you say, she was indoctrinated. So maybe the choice wasn't completely hers. If they're going to try to use battered woman syndrome, they're going to need to link it up with expert testimony. And in the state of Ohio, if they're going for the insanity defense, they're going to need to show that because of a mental illness or mental defect that she did not appreciate the wrongfulness of her actions. And in that situation, the obligation is on the defense to prove it by a preponderance of the evidence. So
Mhm.
it's going to be, I think, a high bar if they're going for the insanity defense.
If you were waiting for a clean answer here, this is the part where the case refuses to give you one. But another detail raises even more questions, and it's the kind of detail easy to miss if you're not paying close attention. At some point, someone enrolled the 6 older children in school. Someone put their names on a record that could be checked. A record that put this family on the radar of the exact institutions they allegedly worked so hard to avoid.
Well, why would, I'm trying to figure out why would somebody want to keep children isolated like that? We know from the records that the 6 older children were enrolled in school at some point in time, back in like the 2020, realm or whatever. Why would you want to keep kids isolated? I mean, kids go to school, they play with people. I'm not understanding the logic here, and we haven't gotten any information to explain that. But what are your feelings as a forensic psychiatrist about a potential motivation for keeping children isolated and, as the prosecutor has said, hidden from the public?
Well, we've seen similar cases that could involve the paranoia about government institutions and government control or indoctrination. It could involve a shared delusion about the outside world and being suspicious of their motives. And it could just be that they wanted to control these kids, that they received some gratification from doing that. So it could be any number of reasons. But again, if there is a psychotic disorder, and again, we've seen no evidence of that so far.
If concealment was the plan, that decision doesn't fit it. Dr. Bober called it surprising for that very reason.
And what's so crazy to me about this as well is that somebody registered those kids in school. So I would have to think that Elizabeth Ciders was the one who registered those kids for school. I mean, they were registered for school. They were truant. So somebody tried to get them into school at some point. Does that have any type of mitigating effect?
Yeah, it's actually surprising to me because to me that would put them on the radar more. That would make someone know that they weren't where they were supposed to be. So you would almost think that they wouldn't register them, and they would, and I quote, homeschool them because they don't want to be on the radar of authorities or people that could potentially expose what's going on.
Who made that call, and why, is a question nobody in this case has answered yet. Meanwhile, there are the photos. Images reportedly taken inside the home on Omar Street have been circulating online for weeks. A kitchen, what appears to be a bedroom with a bare mattress, and writing on a wall that reads, "God protect him." Law enforcement didn't release these. The attorneys for Elizabeth and her father-in-law say what they show is poverty, not abuse. Prosecutors say the family was hiding the children and causing them serious harm. 2 lawyers, looking at the same walls, telling 2 different stories, which, if you've been paying attention this whole video, should sound familiar by now.
In the background of all of this are questions surrounding images and videos posted online that claim to be from inside the Ciders' home on Omar Street. The images have been circulating for weeks. Law enforcement did not release them, and the prosecutor has said the people who took them could be prosecuted for trespassing. We've obtained images from inside the home that match the images posted on TikTok. Law enforcement did not release these, and Law and Crime did not take these photos. They were shared with us. They show a kitchen and what appears to be a bedroom area with a dirty mattress and writing on the wall that states, "God protect him." All of this makes you wonder, what was going on in that house? The lawyers for Elizabeth and Gary Sr. say it shows extreme poverty. Prosecutors say the Ciders were hiding the children and causing them serious physical harm.
And there's one more thread worth sitting with. Back in 2014, a Facebook post attributed to Gary Ciders Jr. instructed people to take down any pictures of him from social media, phrased in a way that suggests it may not have been him typing it at all. But Elizabeth, writing under his account, following his instructions. If that inference holds, it's a small, almost mundane detail. But small details are often where control shows itself most clearly. Not in the dramatic moments, but in who gets to decide what photograph of a face is allowed to exist online.
2008, that's when she got married. Then we have this very odd Facebook post from Gary Jr. in 2014. And it suggests potentially that he was trying to control her. He stated that, hey, this is something to the effect of, this is Elizabeth. If you are putting pictures of me on social media, take them all down. I think we can infer, I mean, you and I have been around long enough to know that potentially Elizabeth was not using her husband's Facebook and saying, this is Elizabeth, take all the pictures of me down. Don't share them anyway. What does that tell you?
Yeah, it tells me that there was a high degree of control over her. I mean, think about this. What it would take to hide these kids, to fly under the radar for this long. Is it something that Elizabeth did by herself? Hard to believe. It seems like it was more of a system that was designed by the husband and the in-laws. They had it down to a routine. So I find it hard to believe that she herself was the sole motivation behind these activities.
The county isn't waiting to find out how the mental health question resolves. They're already seeking permanent custody of all 16 children still living. Not temporary placement, but termination of parental rights. The kind of decision courts are historically reluctant to make unless the facts are severe enough to leave no real alternative.
Another part of this, Elizabeth has said that through her attorney that she wants to get out of jail on bail and be reunited with her children, but the county is seeking permanent custody of these children. They're not saying this is temporary. They're saying this is permanent. We're going to seek to get these children into foster homes and potentially have them adopted out. That severs the relationship legally.
Yeah, as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, I've been involved in a lot of these cases, and the state is very leery about taking away parental rights completely. We look at obviously the standard of what is in the best interest of the child. So when you terminate parental rights, that has to rise to a very high level where you feel like the children are really in imminent danger. But I have to say, given what we know so far, I don't think they're completely unjustified in taking that position.
I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because permanent custody, if the state is taking permanent custody, they will eventually try to find people to adopt.
So here's where this stands. A judge wants competency evaluations completed within 30 days.
The judge has told the attorneys and the District 9 examiners, that's what they call them, that she wants these evaluations conducted and she wants it done within 30 days. She wants the report. She wants to know, whether these people are deemed competent, all of this stuff. Is that fairly common that the judge would say 30 days, I want this on my desk and file it and there it is?
Yeah, it's a pretty common time frame. And then if she's found incompetent, and then we start getting into incompetent but restorable or incompetent but not restorable, then that gets into a whole host of other issues. Will she be sent to a hospital, to some other facility where they will try to restore her competency? And given the seriousness of these charges, it could be a year or more for them to determine it could be a year or more for them to determine that she's not restorable. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
A lawyer believes something is wrong enough to ask for 2 evaluations, not 1. A brother contradicts himself post to post. And a mother of 18 children sits in a cell, by most accounts still not calling herself a victim of anything. If everything Dr. Bober laid out is right, restoring someone's sense of agency after that kind of environment doesn't happen quickly. Some estimates put it at a year or more, and that's if it happens at all.
It does, but sometimes it can make it worse because if there is a perverse psychological dependence on some of these other family members, that may cause her to have tremendous anxiety. We may be dealing with someone who, is unable to make decisions on her own and is so used to deferring to her husband, to her in-laws, that she may completely fall apart without their support. And I use support in quotes.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out and who was quote unquote in charge when all of the facts reveal themselves. Thank you, Dr. Daniel Bober. I appreciate it.
Was Elizabeth Ciders another victim trapped inside that house? Or did she help create the nightmare investigators say existed there? Tell me which one you believe. And I'll be back with what the competency findings actually reveal once they're filed.